Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Joker Rogers. Today we begin in Burkina Faso, where authorities say the death toll from jihadist attack, which happened over the weekend, has risen to 86. The previous toll in the attack in Setenga village stood at 79. The country's military leader, Paul-Henri Damiba, promised action against the attackers when he visited the scene of the tragedy. Burkina Faso has been grappling with a jihadist insurgency since 2015, which has claimed thousands of lives and displaced nearly 2 million people. The latest raid is a major setback for the military government, which forced its way to power, accusing the elected government of failing to address the insecurity challenges in the country. The conflict, which also affects Mali and Niger, is displacing rural communities and contributing to a severe shortage of food. In the meantime, Burkina Faso's leader, Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba, vowed to hit back at the perpetrators of the attack. Over in South Africa, authorities have been searching for days for a missing 6-year-old boy who fell into an open sewer manhole. The minor had been playing with friends on Sunday at a popular park in Soweto, Johannesburg, when the incident occurred. According to some reports, he had been trying to jump on a plank placed across the manhole when he slipped and fell. A search and rescue operation involving Johannesburg's emergency services, the city's municipal workers, and the police continued for the 5th day on Thursday. Robert Maludzi, the Johannesburg's emergency management services spokesman, shared a video as the operation began for the 7th day. Speaking to the local media earlier, the city's mayor, Mfo Falatsi, assured the boy's family that the search will continue until he is found. And staying with South Africa, citizens are marking the 46th anniversary of the youth uprising against apartheid in Soweto in 1976. President Cyril Ramaphosa marks the day at a youth event in Umtata, in the Eastern Cape province, where he encouraged his audience to embrace government's efforts to improve the lot of youths in the country. Celebratory events as well as protest marches have marked the day as the country faces double-digit unemployment figures, a high crime rate, among other socioeconomic challenges. We asked some young students how they feel about the shape of the nation today as it celebrates.
We are in 2022 and we claim to have been in freedom or whatsoever, but we need to first understand that in 1994, South Africa didn't get freedom as it perceived, but we only got partial political freedom because education is still the same, my brother. Like, we still have schools now that don't have like adequate resources. We still have children who go to school barefoot. We still have children who go to school hungry. We still have children who go to school without uniform.
I would say yes or no. The reason why I would say yes is they fought to get opportunities. We are getting opportunities. Utilizing them, I'm not sure. The point where I would say we have utilized them is I'd like us to be more financially literate and make use of more opportunities to do better for our country. Rather than depending on the government, let us be the government, you know, let us make opportunities amongst ourselves and grow like that.
I think we can just work together, believe in each other, believe in ourselves and grow each other, and yeah, the government will come in to help after that.
I believe that what worked yesterday might not work today, you feel? So because people used to strike and got what they want through striking, it doesn't mean it can still happen, you know, because people have been crying about different things, but still nothing has changed. So we must find a new way to make these people listen. And if they can listen, everyone will be good. And when everyone is good, everyone is safe, everyone is good, everyone has food in their stomach, no one has to go out there and do crazy things to get money.
More than 15,000 people have already fled a new wave of attacks in Mozambique's northern Cabo Delgado province. That's according to the International Organization for Migration. The renewed attacks began about a week ago in the south of the province, which was considered a safe area. Conflict in the area started in 2017. Since then, more than 4,000 people have been killed and 800,000 forced from their homes. The fear of more attacks by jihadist groups has triggered the movement of thousands of people. Many of them are children. There are at least 125 pregnant women among the terrified population, some of whom are fleeing for the second time, now abandoning the places where they were starting to live again. The new attacks are in areas that have been a refuge for populations displaced in recent years. Staying with security, Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta has called for the deployment of an East African force to restore safety in the troubled east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. In a statement, he also called for an immediate ceasefire of all hostilities for all armed groups, both foreign and local, to lay down arms immediately and unconditionally amid heavy fighting in recent weeks. The East African Regional Force is to be deployed immediately to the regions of Ituri, North Kivu and South Kivu to enforce peace in coordination of resident UN forces. He adds that a meeting of commanders of the defense forces of East African countries on Sunday in Nairobi should finalize preparations for the deployment. The decision to establish the regional force was made in April when Mr. Kenyatta, the current East African Community chairman, hosted regional presidents over the DR Congo crisis that also threatens neighboring countries. The EAC is made up of 7 countries: Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, South Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Since March, fighting between the Congolese army and M23 rebels has displaced more than 80,000 people. While Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud appointed lawmaker Hamza Abdi as the country's prime minister, with the new premier facing a host of challenges, including a looming famine and an Islamist insurgency. The 48-year-old MP from the semi-autonomous state of Jubaland replaces Mohamed Hussein Rovell, whose 22 months in office were marred by a rancorous dispute with Mohamed's predecessor, Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, that threatened to plunge Somalia back into violent chaos. Well, staying with politics, back here in Nigeria, the People's Democratic Party has a vice presidential candidate to contest alongside its flag bearer, Atiku Abubakar, who was chosen during the party's presidential primary and who is named Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa as his running mate. The decision was announced this afternoon at the party's headquarters in Abuja. He was one of 3 candidates submitted to Alhaji Abubakar by a 17-member committee of the party to fill the VP candidate slot. While announcing his choice to party members, the PDP presidential candidate said it was a difficult decision, but he settled for Mr. Okowa because he possessed some of the qualities he was looking for as someone who understands the enormity of the challenges facing the country and one who has demonstrated from experience that he can prefer some solutions. He says he needed someone with the qualities of a president who can stand in for him when he's not around.
My choice of running mate who will help to lead us to victory next year, not only in the presidential election, but also in the governorship and legislative elections. And he will be by my side as I work hard every day to provide our people with security, revive our economy, improve education, and unite our country. He has both legislative and executive experiences. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the ticket the next Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Governor Ifeanyi Arthur Okowa.
Well, let's move to infrastructure and other stuff now, still in Nigeria. The reconstruction of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway has resumed on kilometer 320 on inward-bound commuters. The reconstruction, which is part of the 43.7-kilometer allotment to Julius Berger on the Lagos to Ibadan stretch, has started to take its toll on residents. Our correspondent, Ole Phillips, reports.
Well, yes, it's happening again. The new reality of Lagos traffic, packed roads on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, inward Lagos, stretching in from the outskirts into Berger, through Otedola Bridge, and all the way towards the former toll gate on this stretch. As you crawl through it inward the city center, it becomes clear where it's all coming from. 7 years has gone by, and the story about the reconstruction of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is yet to climax, with all of its attendant challenges and inconveniences it has brought on for a job of this magnitude. While it is true that the job has to be done, the consequences on motoring experience has brought to the fore inadequacies that needs plugging. For instance, traffic chaperones are not distributed along this lane. Yellow buses and their penchant for disregarding traffic management systems are dropping off and picking up passengers on the already narrowed gauge. There are no visible road signs and advisory to inform road users of what is happening, how long it will take. No soothing signages appealing to the emotions of road users to bear with the inconveniences and more.
For now, look at what is happening on Otedola Bridge. Now, they have just started doing it, which is not supposed to be. A road they could have done for a long years ago, almost 35 years ago, almost, even 40 years ago. Not now, when we have a lot of cars. Then there's no cars, there's not a lot of cars. But look at now, it's affecting people going for their daily bread. I don't know why reason it should be now. They could have done that for long years. While the return journey looks good, it may well just be for a while, as the contractor will also have to replicate the work currently ongoing on this lane onto the outbound Lagos. It is happening. The contractors are back, and this time they will be working from kilometer 0, which is somewhere around 7 up, somewhere around the Way Bridge area. If you know this area very well, up until the Otedola Bridge. 0 to 3 kilometers. Right now, the contractor is working inward Lagos on this side of the express, and will do the same thing on the other side. I understand that it's going to be a 5, 6 to 7 months of activity, so everyone needs to brace up. The Lagos State needs to brace up in terms of traffic management. The Federal Road Safety also has to brace up in terms of traffic management, and the contractor also needs to do well to make sure that this job is delivered on time, so that everyone will have a smooth sail and it will not be so much of inconveniences for those who use the road. From the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the Lagos Expert and Access, Olu Phillips, reporting for Channels Television News.
Conflict and disease outbreaks are pushing food prices up in South Sudan, and that's according to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The prices have increased by 17% compared to last month, with the capital Juba being the most affected. In a statement, the UN also blamed food insecurity for deepening people's humanitarian needs in the country. Some 7.7 million people, more than half of the country's population, are estimated to be severely food insecure this year. They include 87,000 people who are already facing catastrophic conditions. The World Food Programme said it was cutting food aid to almost 6.2 million people in South Sudan due to shortages of funds. Among those to be affected by the food cuts are 178,000 children school under the WFP's feeding program, but it says the effects will be across the country, meaning it will have a severe nationwide impact. While global attention is focused on Ukraine, South Sudan continues to grapple with unprecedented levels of food insecurity caused by conflicts, climate change, COVID-19 pandemic, and the rising cost of living. Meanwhile, the head of the UN Refugee Agency said a food security crisis stoked by the Ukraine war is set to push more people to flee their homes in poorer countries, driving record levels of global displacement even higher. A report by the UN body shows that some 89.3 million people were forcibly displaced worldwide as a result of persecution, conflict, abuse and violence at the end of 2021.
Will this also cause people to move? Now, it's very difficult to tell, but unfortunately, I cannot imagine how. If you have a food crisis on top of everything that I have described, right? War, human rights, climate, you name it. On top of that, you have a food crisis. It will just accelerate the trends that are described in this report and that we have seen accelerating already in the first few months of the year. The impact, if this is not resolved quickly, will be pretty devastating. It is already, by the way, it's not something that will happen. It is already happening, especially in terms of prices. This is really what is happening now that is very devastating for poor countries. 89 million is the figure, correct, Tarek, in the report related to 21. But even without Ukraine, we were already on a very high figure, unfortunately higher than the previous year. And this trend has been going on now for several years. Certainly since I've taken this job, every year there has been a higher displacement figure than the year before. Then, of course, as Junga mentioned already, we had Ukraine, and Ukraine has displaced anyway between 12 and 14 million people, depending on how you count them. So the figure has exceeded 100 million.
At the beginning of the war in Ukraine, can you see already a trend?
In the meantime, the charity Save the Children is warning that about 185,000 Ethiopian children are suffering from the deadliest form of malnutrition. It says children, especially the small ones, are suffering from the famine, which gripped much of Ethiopia by the worst drought for 40 years. Save the Children's country director says the expanding drought is wearing down their resilience, already weakened by conflict and COVID. With 4 rainy seasons already missed and a 5th likely, the charity says 30 million Ethiopians need humanitarian assistance. Parts of neighboring Kenya and Somalia are also affected by this condition. The health matters now. The head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, says that the WHO does not recommend mass vaccination against monkeypox. Briefing journalists in Geneva, he announced that the WHO published interim guidance on the use of smallpox vaccines for monkeypox.
The global decline in reported COVID-19 cases and deaths is continuing. Reported cases and deaths have now both fallen more than 90% from their peaks earlier this year. This is a very welcome trend. Still, more than 3 million cases were reported to WHO last week, and because many countries have reduced surveillance and testing, we know this number is underreported. And 8,737 deaths were reported. 8,737 deaths too many. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to these numbers. There is no acceptable level of deaths from COVID-19. When we have the tools to prevent, detect, and treat this disease. Many of us who live in high-income countries have easy access to those tools. We now take them for granted. But for many people around the world, these tools remain scarce commodities. WHO is aware that countries are discussing a temporary waiver on intellectual property rights for COVID-19 tools at the World Trade Organization's Ministerial Conference this week.
A nationwide strike by state employees in Tunisia is taking place. The most powerful union in Tunisia called for the stoppage to protest against the economic policies of the president in the latest challenge to his rule. The UGTT union has urged its 1 million members to observe the strike across the country to protest against government plans for a wage freeze and cuts in subsidies aimed at securing a $4 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund to ease Tunisia's economic crisis. Flights to and from Tunisia are being halted as a result of the industrial action. The union says its motive is not political, but it's bound to be seen as another challenge to the president, who has effectively assumed a one-man rule for the past year. The UGTT is in any case, already caught up in a showdown with the government after it refused to engage in Mr. Said's plans for a new constitution. The next 24 hours are likely to see the fault lines in Tunisia become even sharper. And over in Senegal, while others see waste, Senegal recyclers see a means to make profit. Hundreds of informal recyclers gather every day at Dakar's main dump site and set aside plastic for recycling.
Bayedame and Diaye expertly sift through pungent heaps of rubbish dumped at the landfill where he grew up outside the Senegalese capital, Dakar. He's setting plastic aside for recycling companies and cuts them into smaller pieces.
I never thought in my life I would end up working here. But when I discovered this job, I found that I enjoyed it more than I could have ever imagined. Other people only see the rubbish they throw away from the houses. But behind it, there's more than rubbish, because it is something we care about.
Hundreds of informal recyclers gather each day as the sun rises over the trash mountains in Mbeberse, Dakar's main dump site. The trade has continued to thrive despite the 2020 ban on single-use plastic and government efforts to formalize waste collection. Ndiaye is part of a team of 120 that picks up around 3 tons of plastic per day. It is chopped into smaller pieces, washed and sold to a middleman for 25 CFA francs per kilogram. Companies buy that plastic for between 50 to 75 CFA francs per kilogram and then sell it to plastic producers in Dakar, such as Simpa.
We have an overcapacity of production, so we took this opportunity to buy waste from outside to help reduce pollution in the country and create a circular economy to have a country that is much cleaner. Because unfortunately, it's a bit sad to say, but we see plastic waste everywhere, so we try to bring our contribution to help cut pollution in the country.
He transforms the waste he receives into small plastic balls that he can then reshape, like transforming them into basins. For example, a product that he can easily resell in the surrounding area, but also in other countries in West Africa. In 7 years of work, Ndiaye has become a breadwinner for his family and set enough money aside to breed sheep on the roof of his home. He bulks up their feed with cardboard from the dump, where cattle herders also find food scraps for their animals.
We don't buy the cardboard. Father Diop cuts cardboard at the dump. I get a bag or 2 from there, and I come and prepare my feed and cardboard mix. Sometimes, what we do is collect polypropylene material and sell it to buy cattle feed.
Ndiaye sells his sheep every year during celebrations to mark the Muslim feast of Eid al-Adha, also known as Tabaski in West Africa.
Well, that's Network Africa today. Thank you for watching. I'm Jokia Rogers.